this is a continuous conversation with all people involved in fashion. And it, as I said, it's from the consumer right through to government. And if it is that the brands are then responsible, it will encourage them. It gives them an absolute opportunity to really extend and think, okay, we've got a great opportunity here into how we can remake these clothes, how we can readjust these clothes, how we can reinvent them, very much like Blue Rinse, but on a much bigger scale, so that it doesn't your product doesn't disappear. It's coming back, and it will come back with a story, and it'll come back with your customer, and they will be asking for their own personalisation on things. And it's a wonderful opportunity to alter our consumption and feel better about thinking when you buy that dress or that shirt, you think you'll be going back to that same brand and reigniting that relationship to continue for much more than just that instant gratification at the point of sale.
I think that's really nice, and I want to hand over to Caitlin first, just to kind of elaborate on that. How would that work in respect of the work that you do now? Yeah. What do you think of this idea?
I think it's a really good idea, actually, just in terms of from the Blue Rinse point of view, it would be a good idea, but also from just fashion in general point of view, I think it would really encourage a more thoughtful approach to what is being produced and why. I think if that did really happen, I know I keep talking about this like model of overconsumption, but I really think that would kind of be less prevalent. It really would encourage brands to think about what they're making, and I think unnecessary things would just stop being made, really, which I think is good. Just in terms of Blue Rinse, we have to think about this anyway, really. We've got a small-scale production sewing room, and we've got like numerous outlets of selling things, but we always have this problem of having leftover stock, so we have this issue anyway. And it just forces your hand to kind of think about why you're producing things and the type of things you're producing, because you just don't want to be burdened with this waste. I find it quite interesting.
So, Liv, in terms of the brands that you work within your showroom, how would that legislation affect them?
Well, we have to be very responsible of where we're putting, like, what we're doing with our stock and how we make sure that it's used up. We know that some of our brands are considering looking at, like, if they should ask consumers to start handing it back, like they've seen H&M has started doing, or other companies. But it's not something that is in place for a small company to start looking into. Where they are really conscious is how many uses is coming out of a piece and how trans-seasonal can a piece be. I try to literally focus on not choosing brands that could only last for one season, but be more conscious about it's something you have for a long time and you're adding it in as a catalog of how you want your wardrobe. And I'm trying to start the conversation with the retailers to get them to push it onwards to the end consumers, and that's the beginning of where you can start. While I would say from every aspect, even when we have had the samples in, we do sample sales, we try to make sure that it is still being used and not just thrown away.
I think one of the interesting things about the work that we do and this sort of systemic view of the industry is you come across all sorts of interesting things you just never thought would happen. So we've got lots of brands like M&S and H&M and others who are taking clothes back from consumers. And the idea is these take-back schemes is trying to help consumers work out what to do with their old clothes. And these brands are trying to work with partners like Oxfam and the Salvation Army and others to provide a second life for these clothes that are coming back. But what's really interesting about the market for second-hand clothing, in many ways, the bottom has fallen out of the market. There is so much stuff that has come back through a lot of these take-back schemes and also from consumers that the organisations, these companies that are involved in textile sorting and recycling are going bust. And part of the reason they're going bust is they're just getting overloaded with stuff that has very little resale value. So what they're getting is they're having to work really hard to find what they call the cream. They're trying to extract the cream from all of this stuff that's coming back. That's the stuff that has real value. But what they're seeing is there's less cream and more non-cream stuff that's coming back. The non-cream stuff just doesn't make any money at all, and you're burdened with this waste. And you're having to try and work out what you're doing. Now, there are certain hotspots where we know that things are working, but when I spoke to the Textile Recycling Association a couple of months ago, they were saying more and more of their partners, more and more of their members are just going, we're not making any money like this. So it's not to say that we're doing something wrong. It's not to say that we shouldn't be recycling stuff and we shouldn't be donating stuff to charities. It's actually trying to work out what we need to do with the model to make sure that relationship is managed. So we don't actually sort of end up in a situation where we're just passing the issue and the problem to someone else in that complex supply chain.
It's interesting that you talk about second-hand clothing companies and how you have to fight for the cream and there's just not existent anymore. We definitely noticed that at Blue Rinse in the past 10 years. About 10 years ago, we used to get loads of what you call grade 1 vintage, which is where you pay a high price and it's all exactly what your customers want. So it might be like a nice pattern blouse or leather jacket or denim skirt. Now our buying model's changed. Our hand's been forced really because the product isn't there. So now we buy what's called waste, which is from large retailers in Europe, and I mean massive. So we get in huge bales of what's not deemed typical vintage, but it's things that we have to rework and we have to find creative solutions for. So that's really where our remade line came from. We were getting these garments that our customers didn't want as they were, so now we have to remake them. So we do what we can with that, but even within that, we have so much waste from that as well. We can't remake everything, so we've been forced to find even more creative solutions to deal with that waste. So just an example from Blue Rinse, we donate a lot of that to sound studios as insulation in walls. We give a lot of the things that we can't sell as is to paint shops, and so they can use them as rags. So just to illustrate the point, there's this massive problem of waste, and this is coming from someone who works in recycling and secondhand clothes, and that's our job to sell it. We can't even sell the things that are meant to be recycled all the time.
It's a crazy situation where by the time you've taken those bales and loaded them onto a lorry, and the lorry hasn't moved, by the time you've done that, your profit has disappeared for some organisations. I mean, and it's so this is the lack. Sometimes there's a real lack of understanding the connectiveness of all of these different things that we're doing, and this is why EPR is seen. Progressive EPR can be really, really positive for the industry. But of course, anyone that's read the Environmental Audit Committee on fashion will see that the government has just gone no to every single suggestion that we've made and said the fashion industry is okay, they'll work it out.